We are shows what you know. We'll always watch TV. And if you think we can't, we'll watch more and you'll see. That's why the people of the web believe in Jim from Las Vegas and Jacob from Sweden.
Hello and welcome to Shows What You Know, your television podcast where we discuss the latest, greatest television shows and sometimes dip into history when it's well deserved, such as I needed to introduce Jim to the TV show The Inbetweeners because it's felt like such an appropriate one for him that he would enjoy, and also because we're doing a thing where we take recommendations in our iTunes reviews, and it was recommended that we do the In-Betweeners. So you could also do that by leaving an iTunes review, by the way. Anyway, hello, I'm Jacob Burrows.
I am Jim Scampoli, and yes, the review was from Adam J on
Yes.
iTunes. And he said, if I had to suggest anything to watch, I'd suggest the In-Betweeners UK.
That UK part is important.
Yeah, I didn't realize that till actually just now, till like a few minutes before we started here. So yes, we are discussing the old show. 10 years old now? I think 10-year anniversary. Here we are discussing the In-Betweeners.
Absolutely. And speaking of iTunes reviews, we do have a new one from Couch Diet, which is Caesar, who's in the chat, I think, who wrote, "As someone who works overnight, nothing is more satisfying than coming home by noon on Sunday and chilling with the bros talking about shows. Live, Sundays before noon PST, Pacific Standard Time." Which is usually accurate, bit later today, but thanks for hanging out in there and waiting for us. That's true. We do broadcast live every Sunday talking about The Sopranos and usually another show like this week, The In-Betweeners. I am dying to hear, because I always fear whenever I introduce any show to you, even if I'm like, I'm pretty sure Jim will like this, and usually, so far, I've been on the ball, and we usually have fairly similar opinions. But it's so different, though, going into the first episode, and I've been imagining in my head Jim watching the first episode, because I've seen 3 series in a movie. So, what's your idea, Jim, after this first season? What do you think about the In-Betweeners, UK?
I mean, I like it. It's a good show. I'm not like over the moon for it, I guess, though. I don't know if that's like a weird underwhelming response.
It is.
I don't mean to ride the fence. And I mean, I'm glad that it was recommended, but I feel like maybe I'm still missing an important piece that kind of comes together as you watch the later series or the movie or what have you. I don't mean this to sound negative, because it's not negative. It's just kind of like, hey, this is a cool show. And it's tough because it's only 6 episodes. It is classic Brit television. So it's a breezy show. It's about 25 minutes or so, and 6 episodes, and then you're done. It's like a movie.
Yeah. So you're underwhelmed, or you're not overwhelmed, at least.
It's weird. I don't want to say I'm underwhelmed, because that's got more of like a negative intent behind it. It's not like that. It's just that it's weird because I feel like I've heard about this show a lot. Yeah. Not that it's been hyped or anything to me, but it is this weird thing I've heard mentioned. And maybe it's just because they did do a US remake. Maybe that's what I'm mixing it up with. But I guess it's not like, say, when I watched, and this is an unfair comparison, but it's not like, say, when I watched series 1 of The Office and I was like, fucking instant classic,
Yeah, no.
I can see that this is a good show, and I like the writing, I like the humor, I like the kids on it. Maybe I'm just an old man, and it's not hitting me where the sun don't shine like it should be, because I'm older. I'm not sure.
Maybe. I mean, I'm not super surprised, because when I started rewatching this, I was carrying the hype in me. I was like, fuck yeah, let's get back into the In-Betweeners. And I'm like, not that I thought it was bad, but there was stuff that I had forgotten, like, oh yeah, we have the voiceover and the flashbacks at the end of each episode and stuff where they're I don't want to say for sure because it's been a long time since I've seen it, but there's great moments in this, but I know there's also stuff in the later series that is extremely good too. But I think a large part of it This was a hugely successful show, or kind of a cult show in the UK, and I think a large part of it is It's just a good show. First of all, it's about some kids going to upper sixth form or whatever the fuck they call it. I don't even know. And I'm half British. But yeah, they're going to school, and I think the thing that that resonated with a lot of people, it's got a certain sense of realness or closeness to what people in the UK are familiar with, that you as an American cannot relate to what it's like to watch shit from the US literally all the time, you know? Because it is your culture being pumped out there into the world. And in this show, you got stuff. I actually talked to a listener of ours, Jamie, to get a kind of UK perspective, because she had told me that in the time it was coming out, it became like a huge thing where everyone would just quote lines at each other from the Inbetweeners. And looking at the viewership, like the first episode was watched by like 300,000 people, and by the end of the season, it had gone up to 1.2 million. Oh no, that was the end of series 2. But either way, yeah, by series 2 it was up to 1 million, and by series 3 it was up to 3.5 million. So unlike a lot of shows that go down, this became kind of like a cult thing that picked up traction over time. And I think that sort of local feeling where you actually get to see people like yourself on TV was probably a large part of that.
Yeah, I suppose. I guess that's like when I watch The Departed, and I'm like, that's just what it's like living in Boston, baby. Shipping up to
Mhm.
Boston. Not this episode. Um, Someone in the chat says burgers shouldn't watch our shows. Is that what people call Americans? They call them burgers. We do eat a lot of burgers here. I mean, so I
I
guess I get
mean,
it.
whoa, boo! Burgers wouldn't watch our show. I don't know. I guess you tell us. The reporter, which is your chat name, I guess.
Although,
Caesar says he loves Inbetweeners and he's all here for it. The MTV remake was superior. Suck it. Lol. Nah, even I don't think that. Yeah,
well,
no one likes that one.
shout outs to Taika Waititi, who directed the first 2 episodes of the US remake. Piece of garbage that everyone wants to love all of a sudden. But anyways, I will say that I guess if burgers shouldn't watch British shows, I'll give you an inside scoop. Burgers love British comedy because it's supposed to give you some sort of air of elegance or superiority of like, you laugh at your American comedy. I prefer a British comedy myself.
Yes. I'm on Urban Dictionary for burgers now, but doesn't really say. It's
I think it's
literally like,
that inside. Well, he says in the chat, burgers are Amerifats. So he's bringing a lot of prejudice coming into the chat just because we're pretty underwhelmed by a show. But
well, I don't know. Urban Dictionary says it's minced and reformed beef in a vaguely disc-shaped slab. Okay, so those people shouldn't watch the show. But anyway, the Inbetweeners. My friend Jamie said that the show became a meme in many ways. Anyone driving to school would shout "bus wankers" at the bus stop. I think that's from a later series, not the first series, right?
yeah, that
Um,
doesn't sound familiar to me.
yeah, but just briefcase. What I like though about the way they talk on this show is just he has a briefcase and then it becomes like, oh yeah, briefcase wanker, and he's like, oh right, that's very good, that's a good one. I am carrying a briefcase, and things sort of develop in a way that feels natural to me at least, especially the I don't know if you like that bit, but friend, oh
Oh, the
friend,
friend one. Well, yeah, because briefcase, I feel like that would happen anywhere. Like
yeah.
that's not like if someone brought a briefcase to just a public high school here in America, like the same exact thing would happen.
Oh yeah,
So
I did. Sorry, I didn't mean that as like a UK thing, but rather as people
gotcha.
talking like real people, which also doesn't really happen on TV, and depicting like what it's like to go to school in kind of a realistic way.
Yeah, I feel like because I feel like the situations are not that there's such general coming of age situations. I feel like the
Hmm.
characters show the most potential, and I understand why this show would have a following and why I'm looking forward to more of it because I think they're all great. But I love that friend bit. I think that's something that's kind of a little weird and funny that he would, they would make fun of him for having an outside friend. It's such a great bit, and the way he gets so mad and reacts to it. I love
Yes.
that. That's awesome.
Yes, and that's the type of thing that would happen in real life. It feels like, but it doesn't even make sense in a script that he just comes up and says like, "All right, I'll see you mate later then," and they're like, "Ooh, who's that? Oh, just a friend," and they're like, "Ooh, a friend," and then they start repeating it, and it escalates like that. You also mentioned the characters. How is it possible that I love all these characters? And they're all unique and distinct, but they're all idiots.
Yeah.
Like it reminds me of Workaholics now after the fact that they manage to all kind of be likable and do dumb shit, but distinctly. And I don't know, they get into stupid antics and situations with the lowest stakes, but somehow raise them to way higher than they should have been, and like take a lie longer than or further than they should have, like saying that Neil's dad's not only bent, he also touched us. That's why we're acting like this. And they show on the doll where Neil's dad touched them, which doesn't make any sense. But yeah, I like that. And all that combined with a sort of sense of realism. I think the Brit pop thrown in all over the place also helps localize it as such. It shows teenagers drinking in a way that you don't always see. I mean,
Well, I have a lot of questions about that.
yeah.
I mean, well, first, I do want to say I like that. I like the way Will becomes friends with them is that he just doesn't stop showing up where they are.
Yeah.
Uh, I like that they don't really have to go out of their way to set up this friendship, and I think he even says it somewhat in the narration. Like he just keeps showing up, and they're annoyed a bit, but they're also not popular. So who do they care? Like they're a rung above him, but it's not like they're popular kids at school. But yeah, I have some questions, and I know you're not from the UK, but hey, you're the closest here.
Hmm.
So yeah, why are they drinking? Like it's weird because it's such an open thing that the teacher's like going out for a drink later, but then when they go, it's still like we need an ID. So because Caesar's in the chat saying something about 15, drinking age is way lower. I mean, I understand the drinking age is probably like 18 from my understanding, or am I
Yeah,
wrong?
which isn't low. That's also the same here in Sweden. You just have a shitty high drinking age of 21.
Well, he also mentioned high school ends at 15. I don't know how true that is, but
Well, these kids are age 16 at the
yeah,
start. And yeah, the drinking age is 18. But as I also asked about this to Jamie, who's from the UK, who told me earlier, because I was like talking about the final episode, I was like, your school gave you drinks at the school event? Like only 2 drinks. Like what the fuck? And she said, no, though we did have sixth form parties at local pubs, etc., that were school parties, but which turned a blind eye to underage drinking. So that's cool, I guess.
okay. So I guess they flubbed it a little bit here, just kind of fibbed a little because they are specifically like at the school, and they each get 2 alcoholic drinks, and the teacher's even like 2 alcoholic drinks only or whatever.
Getting mixed messages from the chat. I'm from the UK. It's 18, 16 is the
Yeah.
next message. So make up your mind, please, and let us know. But no, I guess I could see it happening. Maybe
The only thing I could see is maybe because I don't think he's right that school ends earlier. I think school still ends when you're 17 or 18, depending on when you start, obviously, like here. So I could see that you could have someone who's a senior, or I guess year 13, as they would say, who's 18 that technically could drink. So it would be maybe this weird, some kids can drink, some can't. I don't know. I'm sure we're looking way too into this, but it was really bizarre to me. Um,
But what about stealing alcohol from your parents and then drinking it on a day when you should be in school? Does
of
that seem as
course.
bizarre? That
No,
seems like
no, that's everyone.
yeah, exactly, which is very relatable. Um, I mean, regarding the school ending at 15, like yeah, but then there's sixth form, which is like high school equivalent or whatever. Or okay, we got some info in the chat. High school finishes at 16, sixth form ends at 18. Yeah, which is kind of very similar to what it's like here in Sweden,
Well,
but that doesn't matter.
they mentioned grade 13s, and I assume that's basically like a senior
All right.
because I don't know what sixth form is. Like, basically, you're just saying high school is something different than it is here, which is fine. It still sounds like it's the same amount of years of school, though.
Well, if we all want to get into a discussion of education, I can let you know that here in Sweden, we finish schooling at 14 or 15 and then go to gymnasiet. So if we all want to throw around terms, we can all throw around terms. But I'm interested when we can drink alcohol.
Well, yeah, because Caesar's saying it's the Inbetweeners. That's the point of the show. But that still doesn't explain why they're drinking at the school. Because
also,
and the only I would just accept it, but it's because in the first episode or whatever, they're like not able to drink and they have to stick around to drink.
Yes.
But then it's like, well, no, you can have 2 drinks.
Mm-hmm.
So
well,
that's where it loses me.
Here's what my take on it is, as you saw, he took out his little pamphlet and let everyone know that you can have a drink if you're accompanied by an adult or whatever, of a cider or whatever they'll have you. And I assume it's a similar thing of where it's an organized function with chaperones and such. So having 1, or I guess 2, drinks of alcoholic beverages is going to culture you up and get you ready for academic life. I assume that's the thought behind it. I assume also it had to have happened one time at least in the UK, or it wouldn't be in the show because it wouldn't make any fucking sense. What do you think?
Yeah. I suppose. I just, hey, I guess that's the great thing, like, about the culture. I mean, what was the answer she gave? Oh no, she said that you could have drinks. Typically, it would be outside of school.
It's like the scene in Hot Fuzz where he goes in and like the kids are all underage and drinking in there, and then not Nick Frost. Nick Frost is getting drunk. Simon Pegg is all like, you're 16, you're 16, you're 16, just like in the show.
Yeah. I mean, I know I'm caught up on this. It's just they're giving me mixed messages. That's all. But either way, the other thing I want to point out, the other barbarism that happens in the UK schools, apparently, and I don't know if it happens in your Swede hellholes, but you use trough urinals at your school. What the fuck is that about?
Not here, but I just see it in movies all the time, so I assume that happens, or I don't know.
Well, I just noticed they have trough urinals in their school, and I think at one of the other places they go to, and it's like, all right, bunch of savages pissing in troughs. Like, here's a hole, piss in it.
Okay, well, I mean, if we want to get nationalistic up in here, all our bathrooms that I've been at any school is just you open a door and there's one bathroom inside. There's no cubicle nonsense or any of that. You just have a door and then there's a bathroom, and there's a bunch of door to a bunch of bathrooms. So no social experience at all going to the bathroom. It's private time for you and your waste.
That's interesting. I thought our urinal, like separate divided urinals, were a sign of our Puritan roots. But now I'm seeing even Swedes got it even more made. They got their own private bathroom, like royalty over here. But anyway, it just stuck out to me because, don't get me wrong, I remember troughs when I was like a kid. It's just we've done away with them. So I was surprised to see it. But yeah, back to the show, back to the important things. Now we've discussed bars, drinking age, how school works. One thing I will say, it is interesting that, yes, I mean, the show's 10 years old. At least the series is. But it's interesting. It's because 10 years doesn't seem like that long of a time, but I guess it is a long period of time. It feels like it's such a product of its time. And I could be wrong, but I can't even imagine in the UK they would make a show like this now.
Why not?
I don't know. I feel like they go a little too edgy, or maybe it's because they're all white or something. Like, it would not be the same, I feel.
Wait, what? Why is it? Okay, because you mean we need diversity in our shows and such.
Well, I mean, yeah, and I feel like this show's a bit, it's fairly edgy, and maybe it's just because I don't get to watch a lot of British TV. Maybe it's all like that, but I don't know. It just feels different than what I would expect even here 10 years later.
But that sounds like a good thing then, because you like edgy, right?
No, I do. Yeah, I am saying it's a good thing. Yes.
Cool.
Like, even like making some of the gay jokes they make, stuff like that. Like, am I completely out of, like, you seem very surprised that I'm even saying this, or like, I mean, I guess they don't, I mean, they hit a girl in a wheelchair with something. I guess that's not too crazy.
With a frisbee.
Yeah.
which is a scene that's brought up, I think, in some video essay comparing how the two shows were made, and how in the US version it just kind of and hits her in the head. It's like, oh no. And then you watch that scene over and over of how the anticipation builds from the throw, and the shots of the different characters realizing what's about to happen, and the build up to it, and then it happens, and the aftermath, and just showing how it was actually put together in a quite cinematic way at times. You know, the joke isn't just them talking back and forth, and the joke certainly isn't something that would work in a sitcom like multi-camera shoot. It's actually got some of that language of cinema in it, helping tell the jokes of actual comedy in the visual storytelling as well.
Yeah, yeah, no, I saw a little of that, and yeah, I could see that for sure. And not that the female characters are bad. I mean, because they're all pretty like they think the main characters are idiots, and the main characters are idiots. But
Yes.
I don't know. I still feel like people be very critical of the way like they talk about women and stuff like that. Again, I mean, maybe I'm completely out there, and because I read up on a lot of this outrage culture, but I feel like people wouldn't be okay with a lot of the stuff in the show.
Caesar also said they wouldn't make Skins either, and I think that's a fairly good point. Did you ever watch Skins?
I did not. That's another one they remade, correct?
Yeah, and Skins is such a weird fucking show because it's basically like this, but then it's like all the characters do hard drugs and it's hella cool. And like it's like instead of like going off from school, bunking off or whatever they call it, to steal some vodka, they're like doing hella drugs and slanging drugs and getting into trouble and driving a car into the river, and it's all portrayed as like the greatest thing ever. So that's an interesting show. I think I've seen a lot of it. Certain seasons are pretty good, but compared to that, this is pretty tame. I guess there are some things though, as far as the product of its time, where we tend to be a bit more sensitive and aware these days, don't we?
Yeah, I'm not saying it in a bad way. I don't know. It's interesting to me to go back to stuff that seems like it's not that old. But I mean, 10 years is quite a bit of time. These kids here would be pushing 30 now. So yeah, there we go. The new generation comes in. But yeah, I do like there's one thing I like, and then they kind of go back on it. I like that they set up what's the character? Is it it's not Will. Because I pull up their names.
Jay?
Simon. I like
Simon.
because Simon likes that girl who he's known since he was a little kid or whatever, and he has a crush on her. And I like that. I feel like they set it up almost as this is going to be a running thing of him, his misadventures of trying to get with the girl he likes. But then in the second episode, they immediately take the piss out of it. Haha. If I could go with the nomenclature, where he pukes on her brother's head. And it feels like I thought that was a kind of a cool way of being like, nah, this isn't that show. We immediately just destroy this. But then I feel like they try to come back on it at the end and make like almost like an emotional moment. But I don't feel like those hit. I don't feel like it hits where maybe I'm reading it wrong, but I feel like they try to have a real moment in some of those.
Or do you mean as for the show in general, or their specific relationship?
For the show in general, like the way the final episode ends, I don't feel like it hits emotional beats that it's trying to go for.
Okay. I guess the reason it worked for me, the final episode, is the real emotional beat isn't when he's trying to confess his feelings to Carly, because he kind of realizes, wait, what the fuck am I doing? This is not what I'm here for, or whatever. The actual like connection moment is of them like fucking around and jumping on the trampoline after everyone's left, and kind of celebrating that they managed to do something kind of cool together. And that's also there's girls in the show, but the girls are very two-dimensional as far as we see them. It's all about the boys and their relationships, and they clearly pine after various girls with various levels of success, but it's all about how they become closer as friends and more annoyed at each other. And I do love how Jay and Neil and what's his Simon. They're the friends, but Simon and Will become best friends. We can tell that they kind of pair up, and they say at the in the final episode that he's different since you came here. Like he's expressing himself and all this nonsense. But they make a joke out of it as well because he's a idiot.
Well, but that's what I mean. All three of those parts I don't feel hit like they should. Like
Okay.
I feel like that they're setting it up when they say that, and then it's kind of getting to the moment when he has like he's gonna say it and he hesitates, but then he like looks and she's just gone. And then the final scene when he's kind of supposed to have an epiphany. I guess it's nice that he doesn't have some dumb monologue about it because it wouldn't fit the show. So, but like what you're saying, I get that. I just it didn't fully work for me.
Yeah, that's fair. It's not the deepest show, if we're being honest. Like I like those moments, and maybe that's partially as well because I've had way more time to connect these characters. It's like you
Yeah.
rewatching The Sopranos, because I mean, moving forward, I don't actually like my memories aren't super clear on what happens, and I didn't remember very clearly what happened in the first season or anything until I was watching it and it was happening because what's actually happening isn't as important as the mood they establish, which is all about the dialogue shooting back and forth and the absurd events they get into.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, maybe I'm holding it to a higher regard than they're going for, but I guess I think of things like The Office or even something like Freaks and Geeks,
Yeah.
and it's probably unfair to compare those, but I feel like I don't know. Maybe I just thought they were going for something that they had no intention of doing, and I just read it wrong. Because again, this is the first time I'm watching it. And yeah, I haven't seen where we go from here. But from my understanding, there's one movie or two movies as well.
I think there's two. I think I only saw one though. But I will say it's not like it gets hella deep or anything. This is just a crass, fun comedy all the way through,
Fair.
from my judgment. And that's why I don't really mind those moments because I don't think they're overreaching in them, for me at least. It's kind of like just sprinkled in there where the main thing is like, I don't know. I like the crass comedy stuff they do.
Oh no, I love it too. Like I do enjoy the comedy, and again, I guess like I'm just reading more than what they intended, but I felt like they were going for something there, and it just didn't land for me. I didn't realize. Yeah, I guess the character's name's Carly, and that's Anthony Stewart's head's daughter. Thank you, chat. That's interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah. So that's the Inbetweeners. Oh, hey, Jamie's in the chat now. Yeah, we talked about what you were discussing about how it's a very UK show. It's like the most UK young person show, and I think that's why it resonated with a lot of people there. But as you said, Jim, it's also general experiences that they're depicting. It's not specific. It's like specific in the detail, but in its actual execution, it's very general. What they actually go into, something we experience in Sweden, in the US, in the UK. And I think that's why it can reach a lot of people.
Yeah, I do want to address something else in the chat. The whole point is that Simon and Carly Diamato's relationship is supposed to be toxic, but I guess that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that there's not enough even there to read that it's toxic because I actually, and maybe it's because my expectations were set where I thought it was a nice subversion where I thought the first episode was setting this up as this like weird, like, will they, won't they? And then I thought the second episode was great at being like, nah, this is bullshit. He puked, he did like the worst things drunk and puked on her. But then
Yeah.
I felt like they tried to do an unearned like reach around, I guess, in the final episode and bring it back kind of out of nowhere to me, anyways.
Yeah, and I see that more as Simon being an idiot and not being able to let go of pining after this girl. And as we see him like crouch down, clutching his head like "Urgh," in the when he's trying to ask her out or whatever, like
Yeah.
I don't see them as trying to like go back on will they won't they. I see it more as like him being a weirdo. And I like that in a couple of episodes ago at the party when he's like thinks he can talk to a girl and they say, oh, you get a bit stalkerish, you better get a bit creepy
Yeah.
when you're interested in a girl, and he totally does. um I love all those little quirks they throw in.
Well, and I mean, I'm not really responding to what you're saying. I was just more responding to what he said because I don't feel like
Yeah.
that's true for series one. But I guess reading what he's saying, he's kind of going off of the whole series, which I don't have the context of. Where I just don't think it's true to read from this series that the whole point is that they have a toxic relationship, because I don't feel like there's even a relationship there.
Yeah, no, because we barely see her. We see her in like the first and the last episode. So I agree with you there. There's not that much going on there. Or yeah, the first and the second and the last.
And I like what they play up with Will, like with Will and the slutty girl or the popular girl, whatever she's supposed to be. I guess if
Charlotte.
you listen to Jay, she's a slut. If you just listen to other people, she's just a cool chick. I like how they play that out, and they talk about the obvious thought is usually like she's doing a weird thing. Like it's either this weird challenge because Will's a nerd or because Will's a virgin, or like they bring up that it's a bet. And I like that they don't really bother. They don't have to get into too much specifics. And I feel like that moment plays really well as far as like as an emotional beat that this show can have. Like we said, it is just more crass, fun comedy. I think that plays really well where he's hurt and he's kind of thinks he threw away his friends, but they show up and it's like, hey, let's all hang out. It just that I feel like that hit better to me than say like the end of the last episode.
Yes. Jamie wrote one thing she likes about UK comedies is that they often don't land exactly, but that's part of the joke. Although I may have missed the part of the context of that statement. Yeah, you kind of came into the half middle of the discussion, I guess. Because I mean, we all like the Inbetweeners. Like, let's get that out there. Like,
Oh, for
yeah,
sure.
Jim. Yeah.
No, I mean,
And
the thing is with a lot of these, sorry to cut you off, but
no, it's
the thing
fine.
with a lot of these, when we go back and watch an old show, we usually are like, we did Space series one. I mean, I'm sure we'll eventually do series two, but I would like to do another. Like, I'd like to follow this up. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
make like we'll go through series two and three, and maybe the movies or what have you. So yeah, I'm definitely in. I'm just talking about as a first time viewer. Here are some things that kind of stuck out to me.
Yeah, and the reason I think it's was massively successful is if you look at the time, like we were saying, it's a product of its time, but I think it's also true that there wasn't anything like it at the time, right then, because I compared it to Workaholics, but that didn't start until a number of years later in a different country with adult characters as well. So even if it's maybe aimed towards kind of a teen demo, uh, this is, I don't know, it fills a space that I think a lot of shows try to fill and totally don't do it well at all.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. You take the kind of coming of age teen comedy movie, but you follow it through as a series, and it seems like such a no brainer. But you're right. I don't. I mean, there are obviously a lot of teen high school shows, but this does feel very particular and does feel a little different and fresh.
Yeah, it's no Riverdale.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, again, like you had mentioned before, where it's just kind of regular situations, but it's heightened through the characters. They don't have to add in a lot of melodrama that standard, teen dramas or TV shows will do. And yeah, and I guess from like the outsider's perspective, like we say, like it's very UK and stuff, because like I get to learn about caravan clubs, and I love the idea that they were joking about them in an earlier episode, and then when we got to an episode and they're like, we're gonna go to the caravan club, I was like, yeah, this is great. I want to let's see if everyone's getting fucked and having threesomes at the caravan club.
Yeah, and just imagine if every show you watched was telling you about this whole culture that you weren't associated with at all. And then they even touch upon that in the last episode of like this when the teacher is talking about this Christmas party or prom, if you insist on referring it to our barbarians and so on.
And yeah, I do, and I want to call out on that Caravan Club episode with Jay's dad. I just know him as the guy from The Office on the Christmas episodes. He's one of Don's fiance's friends, like from the warehouse or whatever. and he's kind of the same character because he's the one that tells the pregnant lady like he's not gonna put his cigar away or whatever, and he's like, just
Yeah.
because some bloke threw chunks up your muff or whatever the fuck he says to her. Like,
Yeah, that guy is the worst. That dad, and like the episode where Will is there, using the trough, which is a recurring character in the show. It's kind of like the fifth main character, the trough, and the worst, just the worst person to be around. He makes you like Jay because Jay is a liar. He's kind of a scumbag and he says offensive things all the time. But then you see his dad, who's the worst, and you kind of get it. So yeah,
yeah,
good
and
stuff.
and one thing I do like I really liked how episode 2 really, they don't waste time. I mean, obviously there's not a lot of time to waste anyways, only 6 episodes, but episode 2 takes everything to the extreme because I'm just settling in on this show and learning who they are, and yeah, they already have him like wasted puking on a brother, and then they're saying that the friend's dad touched them, but like they're just saying it to their parents, and that would typically be like a big deal. I mean, I know obviously it's comedy, it's a little different, but it's just such a fucking outlandish thing to already happen out of
Yeah,
nowhere. I guess because they're drunk, so they're just kind of grasping at straws or something. But it's a really funny way to escalate things so fast.
yeah, and it's also because it's such an absurd thing to do, and they're saying like, look, if you like that's a very serious accusation, and you can either repeat that, think very carefully about what you've just done, and repeat that again, but only if you're 100% serious. And like they're given an out right there, and then they're like, no, oh yeah, I guess then they start crying and say they're alcoholics, and they just laugh at them. So they get out of it by being totally pathetic.
One thing I wanted to ask, and I assume this is maybe just out of necessity, but I was so distracted by the posters in their like hangout room in the school because there's like an NWA poster, then there's a poster for the movie The Lost Boys,
Oh,
and then something else, and I was just like, what a weird I don't know if that's just the school trying to be hip or kids liking old late 80s, early 90s shit, or just the creators like reminiscing about stuff they grew up with. But I just thought it was bizarre.
I didn't notice it at all. But well, it's talking more about the sort of form that they make things have. What did you think about like the graphics and the titles and sort of it's kind of interesting this whole end of part one that they put in where the commercial breaks usually go. Any thoughts on those things?
I don't think I had that on mine.
Never mind then.
Oh, I mean, that's interesting. Yeah, because I don't think I had that on my rips or whatever I watched it on legally, of course.
Legally, we all watched it legally, and it's kind of like the intro, the graphics in the intro. It sort of shifts the video into that type of graphic, and then it says like end of part one. I don't know if that's a UK thing or at all, but I thought that was pretty interesting, and that's the same they do it. But that happened at the end of your episodes, right? It does the graphics or no?
Well, it would go, yeah, it would go into like the black and white or
Hmm.
whatever, like the
Yeah.
graphic. Yeah, I would get that. I don't remember anything like the end of part one. Um, I mean, I as a noob when I first started watching it and they were doing the flash forwards really quick, but he wasn't really talking about it like a flash forward. I did have to like double check, like, am I watching the first episode? Like that
Yep.
did throw me a little bit.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking of when I started watching this again, having all the baggage behind me of of what the show becomes, and I'm watching it again. That I was like, oh yeah, these are interesting choices that are a bit distracting at times. Of like, he does a monologue and it's just jumps forward and jumps back, and I guess it's kind of just to hook you. Like they're kind of taking audience retention to the max. Like they're doing the YouTube thing of they're doing the trailer before the trailer. Like even though that sucks, I think it's probably an effective tool. It doesn't make the episode any better, but yeah, it's a bit disorienting.
Yeah, it threw me for a little bit, but I did like it. I
Okay.
kind of did, like you're saying. I thought it was interesting. It made me second guess. I was like, "Am I on the wrong episode?" But I liked that it was kind of showing you where we're headed, even and I assumed it was all like first episode stuff, not realizing it was like cutting ahead to a few episodes.
Yeah.
But I was here for it.
Okay, well, this is just us discussing just the first series, and as we've said a lot of times, oh, you funny UK people, 6 episodes? That's not a series. But yes, we will probably need to get back into it. But would you recommend that the Inbetweeners, comparing it to the shows that are out right now, it's a show worth getting into? Because I still feel that it is.
I would recommend it. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. So that's a recommendation, everyone, from Jim. Though
Yeah.
those are hard to come by. So
Stamp of approval.
yeah, perfect. I would do shipping up to Boston, but their sample rate is so small that our top 5 list would not be conclusive. I feel, unless it was on. Like I was discussing last time, this is kind of, this is totally relevant. Archive of Our Own is clearly the main hub nowadays, but this show is so old that it has twice as many fics on fanfiction.net. And fanfiction.net doesn't have the great tagging system, which makes it very difficult. I would need to go through 61 stories and check out which is actually the most popular ship. I may need to read them all. Might do that anyway. You never know. But we'll probably do that when we discuss series 2 or something like that, I think, because it needs a bit of research.
Yeah, I would imagine most of the ships are just the fellas, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'll give you some points for that. There's not a lady to be seen in the top 5. Actually, I can give you the Archive of Our Own top 5 because they're all, yeah, it's Will/Neil is in 5th place, Jay/Will is in 4th place, Simon/Will is 3rd, Jay and Neil is 2nd, and actually, quite surprisingly, Jay and Simon is in the top spot. But as I said, it's a limited sample rate.
And I mean,
Or
again,
size, sample size. Sorry.
I haven't. I obviously I don't know where things go, but I would say the hack, and maybe I'm being unfair, or maybe this could work, but the obvious like weird thing you would do, I guess, especially if this was an American show, is Jay would be gay.
Mm-hmm.
Now
No
you don't
comment.
need to confirm or deny on this, but that's where they would go if it was. Maybe that's where the Brits would go as well. But I'm just saying that's where this was a U.S. show. That kid would be gay by the end of the season and be a secret or whatever, and then he'd slowly come out that he's gay.
What about Neil's dad? Would he be gay in the U.S. version?
Well, I like that they kind of make him gay, and the parents and everyone all act like he's gay too. So I do enjoy that. Like the parents are all like, "Oh, don't worry, we don't mind that you're gay."
No, I'm not gay. No, it's all right. No one's going to judge you here. Oh, good stuff. Yeah, so I think that concludes our discussion of Series 1 of The Inbetweeners. Thank you for hanging out in the chat, everyone. To follow our future discussions, please check out showswhatyouknow.com, where you can also leave a review and recommend a show for us to watch as whatever his face was that recommended this one, AJ, or whatever it was. Yeah? Adam J. Thanks for recommending The Inbetweeners. We have a whole list of stuff to get through, but always we appreciate new recommendations. And of course, check out our Sopranos live streams every Sunday, and Twitter at showswhatyouknow with a U for the letter instead of the word U. Jim, what else?
Well, you can also find more of Jacob Burrows at awesomepedia.org. You can find more of me at jimandthem.com. Please come along with this journey as we watch more of The Inbetweeners, whether you've already watched it or you're like me and you're watching it for the first time. And eventually, I guess, would we have to take a peek at the American Inbetweeners?
I mean, just for reference, I guess, but universally, everyone hated it in the world. And I don't know, like,
kind of tried to do the same thing, right? They tried to like
shittier. I don't get it because, like, I guess the U.S. remakes work when they make it their own thing. Like, The Office kind of worked for some seasons, at least, because they, like, I mean, it's been said a million times, but season 1 of The Office, U.S., they were just trying to do original The Office, but worse. And then season 2 and 3, they were kind of doing their own thing. That's my opinion, at least. And while it wasn't the original is the best, it was still a pretty good show, I thought. But every other remake just seems to remake it like shot for shot, and then what's the point?
Yeah, well, and it's amazing that it's funny that the first season is 12 episodes of the version. Although, I
Yeah.
mean, gotta give it up to I don't know if any of these UK heads in the chat watch the UK Shameless, but US Shameless, mwah, mwah. I'm sure that's sacrilege to you blokes, but
You're being a real burger right now.
yeah, definitely.
Well, House of Cards too, though. To be fair,
Oh, very true.
I also didn't enjoy the UK version that much, although they were made about 20, yeah, it's about 20 years apart, something like that. So there's going to be a bit of a difference there. Yep. They're saying it's not super offensive. Perfect. Thank you for hanging out, everyone. We're going to see you next time.
See ya.